How is it going, guys? Patrick James here, America's Charisma Consultant for Men. And today I'm going to do something very unique that I haven't yet done on YouTube, which is I'm going to break down a very magnetic personality, Will Smith, who for all intents and purposes is a very charismatic individual. So I chose one clip that I felt you could learn a lot from. I'm just going to watch the clip with you, and periodically I'm going to stop and I'm going to point out something that he did that was very charismatic. The thing that he did acted to boost his charisma in that moment. Now, there's one thing before we continue that you should know about charisma. Charisma is very simple to define, and most people don't even know the definition of it. All it is the contagious vibe that you convey that brings others up. So if someone's around you, they will feel more positive and more energized just from being in your presence. Will Smith is definitely one of those guys. So without any further ado, let's get into all the charismatic stuff that this Will Smith gentleman does.
How does that feel that Jada is in this movie with a whole bunch of naked men?
No, it was really interesting.
So before we even get started with the video, you can already see that he's laughing, he's smiling, he's having a good ass time. Look at him. He's leaning back into a seat as he's about to tell a story. This is very charismatic. Charismatic people are always laughing at other people's jokes, which makes the other person feel significant, and they're laughing at their own self-entertaining humor. They're always laughing because, as you've probably heard before, laughter is contagious. And side note, and I want you to look for this as we go through this video, if you're telling a story, it'll make the other people who are listening to your story more interested and more enticed if you are leaning back while telling a very interesting story. Because if you are leaning forward during your story, it conveys that you really want them to listen. You really want them to pay attention. Whereas if you're leaning back and you're kind of nonchalant with your body language, then it's just very enticing and intriguing, and everybody's just listening just a little bit closer. So look for that as we go into this video.
Interesting, because there were a lot of the guys. There were a lot of famous
Those
people.
guys, right?
Yeah, a lot of them. You know. Yeah, so everywhere I go, there's someone who's been in their underwear with my wife. It's just awkward. Yeah. It's just awkward, Ellen. But she spoke very, very highly of you. I guess that didn't come out right either.
Yeah. Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah, it's just awkward. Yeah. It's just awkward.
Yeah. No, that's you know what you.
So one of those things that he did right there that was very charismatic is something I like to call holding back the laughter. I mean, it's not very a creative name. Let's call it bottled laughter. So basically when he's telling a story, he's doing self-entertaining jokes. He's telling jokes to entertain himself and to keep the story funny and light and nonchalant. And as he's cracking these clearly indirectly funny statements, everybody else kind of finds it funny. But because he doesn't laugh at his own joke right away, it kind of makes the other people it builds up tension because they want to laugh, but they're kind of following his lead at the same time. So when you don't laugh until the end, until you hit the climax of your story, one, it makes the other person listen even closer to your story. Two, it builds up the tension. It builds up the story even more because you're not releasing that tension by laughing. Laughter releases tension, and charismatic people know how to build up that tension and make it really more of a roller coaster of emotions. So at the end of his story, then he started finally laughing, and that is when everybody else just kind of and started laughing themselves. It was very charismatic. Also notice that whenever he says anything, he's speaking slightly louder than anybody else would. So there's this Pareto Principle going around that you may have heard of before, and it basically means that 20% of your actions are responsible for 80% of your results. Well, that kind of goes with anything that you do. So in this case, he's talking about 20% louder, and it's making him a lot more charismatic than anybody else. So definitely look for that. The way he speaks a little bit louder than most people would during an interview, and it's simply a result of him being confident in the words that he says, and he's saying them unapologetically. Now let's go back and watch the very end of that story real quick so you can see what I'm talking about.
Highly of you. I guess that didn't come out right either.
That's okay.
Yeah, it's just awkward.
Yeah.
It's just awkward.
Yeah. No, that's you know what I saw the movie and they don't have to. They have to compete with you. You look amazing.
Oh, thank you.
You look
Thank
really,
you.
really
Okay, one thing I want to point out here because he's about to get showered with compliments by Ellen. Okay, he's going to get showered with compliments. Now, I've heard the question, or I've been asked the question before, how do you take a compliment in a confident way? Because there's a lot of people who really don't know how to take a compliment. Now, there's definitely a right way and a wrong way. And the wrong way is to act awkward or kind of just like meander on the compliment that you said because you feel awkward taking a compliment. If you were a truly confident person, you would simply say, thank you, with a smile on your face. If I get a compliment, the absolute best way and the simplest way, which for some reason is counterintuitive to a lot of people, is literally just say, oh, thank you, man. That's it. Now, that's one way you can react in a confident way to a compliment. Now, as you'll see, the second way that you can react is with humor, and we'll get to that in a little bit. I pointed out when it happens, and you'll even see it. But just pay attention to how Will Smith takes these compliments. Let me just skip ahead to one of these moments where he gets another compliment.
So you don't have to get back to it. But you really do. You look better now than you've ever looked. Don't you think?
Thank you.
Don't you agree?
I feel better.
See, he just says thank you like a confident person, like someone who really knows that he deserves the compliment, but also he's secure enough in himself to just say thank you in a confident way, maybe just kind of laugh it off and move on with the conversation, okay? Take it like a confident gentleman.
Thank you. You know, I feel better for sure. You know, I have two sons and a daughter, so I have, these, little Thundercats walking around my house now, So my sons, but they're skinny, so they come up all the time, and Jaden just looks like, Dad, when am I gonna have that? And I tell him, I said, boy, this is man meat, okay? That's chicken breast. You're not gonna have this for a while.
Yeah.
So, but
were you a late developer?
I was a late bloomer. Probably right around 26 or 27 years old, I started to fill out a little bit, and it was because I've always been skinny, but it's I've been the funny guy.
Yeah.
But I grew into my ears, I guess you could say. Yeah.
But you were the funny guy, and then you started doing films, and you became all these other leading man characters that you started.
Now, a couple things I want to point out right here. You'll notice in his stories, maybe he's not as articulate as he can possibly be, but people still listen because of the fact that I pointed out when he's telling a story, one, he's leaning back into his seat, which invites the other person to lean forward and kind of listen closer. Two, when he talks, he uses a wide animation of presentation. When he was talking about his man meat, he was grabbing his chest. And when he was talking about pointing out his son's chicken breasts, he was literally acting out a story. That's just one of the things that charismatic people do, is they animate their words with their hands, okay? And they don't go too crazy with it, but it's a lot better than the alternative, whereas someone who's not charismatic might be telling a story and they've got their arms crossed or they've got their hands in their pockets, okay? So start talking with your hands. It's very charismatic. And as you'll find out, when you start doing that, people will, one, be more enticed by your story because as you emote, they're going to be imagining the story with you and kind of picturing it like a movie a little bit. And two, as you move your hands, you are basically putting your body into motion. And as we all know from Tony Robbins, he always says, motion creates emotion, where you can even change that to positive emotion is created by motion and negative emotion is created by lack of motion. So as you're moving, as you're emoting, you are basically amping your own state and you're making yourself feel more positive. And as you do that, it's like an endless cycle because positivity radiates off of you, which is also very, very charismatic. Now, there's another thing I want to point out right here is as someone else is talking to him, look at his eye contact, okay? A lot of people don't really understand good eye contact, but here's the rule, all right? Here's my rule. When you are talking, you should be emoting with your words. It's acceptable to look away, especially when you're talking to multiple people. So Will Smith does this really good when he's telling a story. He'll be looking to the audience, and then he'll look to the DJ behind him, and then he'll look to Ellen, and he's kind of dividing up his eye contact as he's talking. But as he's listening, he is really not breaking eye contact. You'll see this in a little bit as I rewind the video, but he's really just about 95% of the time, he's holding that dominant, relaxed eye contact with a little smile on his face. And it just is very charismatic. People want to talk to you when you do that, when you listen in that manner. Okay? So look at this eye contact real quick.
These other leading men characters that you started really going, becoming that leading man.
Yeah, always, I've never, with focus, this is the first time that it's like, people talking about sexy. It feels
You're
weird.
Sexy.
Yeah. Girl, stop playing with me.
That's the second way to take a compliment like a confident badass. So the first way was simply saying thank you and then moving on. And the second way was with humor. As you can see, he kind of played it off with humor, and that also shows confidence, okay? Because a person who wasn't very secure in themselves, a person who didn't feel worthy of a single compliment, they wouldn't be able to joke about it, okay? They would act insecure. They would start looking down. They would start fidgeting and get nervous. Simply say thank you. Be grounded and not fidget, and be confident. Act like, yeah, I know that's a really good compliment. I know I deserve the compliment, and thank you. Thank you, man. It really means a lot. And then the other way is with humor, obviously, as you just saw.
But there was like 1 minute when we did Bad Boys, right? So when I go to theaters, when my movies come out, and I sit in the back and I try to see how people are reacting. And there was a scene in Bad Boys when I was running with my shirt open. It was the first time in my life ever I heard a woman go, and I was like, I didn't know what to do. I was like, what was that, miss? But it really is it's a strange thing to be considered. Like when I think sex, I look at Denzel and I was like, now that's a sexy man.
Yeah.
But I never thought of myself in that way. So it's fun.
Well, and I would choose you over Denzel. That's
okay.
I would.
Now, before we close out this video, I really just want to rewind that story and make sure you really look for all the subtle nuances, the way he talks with his hands, the way he actually divides up his eye contact between Ellen and between the audience, and really just pay attention to how he keeps the audience's attention when he's telling the story, because 1, he's leaning back, 2, he's emoting with his hands, and 3, anytime he can feel like he might be losing their attention, he'll crack a joke real quick, and it kind of snaps them back. So here we go.
It really is it's a strange thing to be considered. Like when I think sex, I look at Denzel and I was like, now that's a sexy man.
Yeah.
But I never thought of myself in that way. So it's fun.
Well,
it's
yeah,
fun.
and I would choose you over Denzel. That's
okay.
I would. Keep in mind, neither will happen. I'm just saying.
All right, man, that closes out this video breakdown today of a very charismatic individual, Will Smith. Hope you got a lot out of it. I tried to just kind of brain dump everything that I could think of throughout this video. But if you like this video, if you want to see more content like this in the future, then give me a thumbs up and even comment below on what you liked about this video, or even what you thought I could have improved on, okay? Anything that you want to say, leave a comment below. And if you really want to find more information about how to amp your charisma, how to have attractive conversations, how to flirt with women, be sure to get on my email list by clicking the link in the description, and I will see you later.